Hi everyone, this is Rena Jada from HealerPedia, and today I'm super excited to welcome Christine Dao, who is an amazing acupuncturist, my personal acupuncturist and healer, might I add, as well as the founder of Dao Integrated Health here in Livermore, California. Christine, welcome.
Thank you.
So you have an amazing story because not only are you a healer, you are also healed or on the way to being healed. So let's kick it off by what illness do you have and how did you diagnose it? How did it get started?
So first off, I have fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and celiac disease. Um, and so the journey to figuring that out, as with many healers and people who have gone through this journey, is a long one. So it's been about 4 years, 3 major years, that really were the foundation of figuring out what was happening. And then the last fourth year is really more working on solving, changing my life, making adjustments that would be congruent to healing. So,
How did you find out that you had fibro? Talk about symptoms maybe. Let's start with symptoms.
yeah, so it actually started really benign. It started out with, about a year after the birth of my daughter, I split up with her father and had been promoted to outside sales for a company, a software company in the Valley. And through that process of, I'd say, lack of self-care, slowly became more and more fatigued and getting sick all the time and just really not feeling myself. So it really crept up on me. And looking back, I go, well, of course, I was in outside sales. I was a single mother. I was, managing a mortgage. I was, dealing with the late 2009, 2010 drop in the economy, which, in Silicon Valley was one of our worst drops. So, that was a lot on one person's plate as it is. And then I got mono in 2009. And that was really the mark of major change in my body. And so with mono, I then started to have fatigue like no other. It was, wake up and you just were walking through mud. And after the mono, I had severe brain fog, so bad that I'd be in front of customers doing a presentation like I always did about our software, and the lights would go off. I couldn't remember where I was. I couldn't remember what I was doing. I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know who I was with, and I didn't know why I was there. So literally, the lights were off. And I can still remember the faces, just of people, these executives staring at me going, okay, this woman just stopped talking and she clearly doesn't know what's going on. And what do we do? What do we say? Do we say anything? Do we just sit here and wait? So that's clearly etched in my mind forever. And that progressively got worse to the point where I just thought, I must have Alzheimer's. I must have early dementia. Something is wrong. And, so the doctor sent me to the neurologist, and of course my brain was fine. So they say in that world, now we know that, brain fog is real. And the testing for it in the way that they do it from a neurologist, unless you have someone like Dr. Perlmutter that could decipher these things, said I was clean bill of health. What's wrong with me? And so that was the start of the change. And I had seen my physician 23 times. I counted today for our little video chat, and she thought I was a hypochondriac.
Wow.
So, she told me, she looked me in the eyes and she's like, "You're too stressed. It's all in your head." I'm like, no, it's not in my head.
I've heard that about 10 times, so I can relate. That's right. It's all in your head.
All in my head.
And then, of course, you're depressed, right? Did you hear that?
No, yes. And I've been told that, from up and down so many times, and the fact that, you know, I accepted even antidepressants because of course they must be right. You know, anything to feel better. I don't care what it is. What does it look like? You know, I'll stand on my head. So, you know, they hand you the pills, and that's the mentality in the beginning, because that's
Mhm.
kind of the paradigm of our society is, oh, take some pills, you'll feel better in the morning. Well,
Right,
you
because
got
if they can't find out what's wrong with you through a blood test, then
yes,
it must be depression.
yes.
So, of course. So please continue.
So I got mono, and then I was trying to look through my notes, about 4 to 6 months later, I got H1N1. So I don't know if you remember when that went around.
My goodness. Yes, of course.
Yes, and you know, I worked for an Intel-based company, so we were around the world. So a lot of my office got H1N1, but I think the two together really wiped me out. And then in 2010, September of 2010, I was rear-ended. And that's when the pain began. And in the beginning, I didn't think much, you know, of the pain, except for the fact that, you know, it hurt, but that must be the car accident. That
Right,
there's
right.
nothing else to it, but the car accident pain never went away. It continued every day and never went away. And it went from, you know, my neck where I had the whiplash and the low back pain, to down my legs, you know, to my feet and just in my bones. And no one could explain that. And so my doctors had no answers. And so I started to look outside and was like, okay, I have nowhere else to go. I need to figure out someone who can help me. This can't be my life. And
So
so I
how
spent,
long have you already been suffering at this point, Christine, when you said, I've got to try to figure this out on my own?
so by then it was end of 2010, and this started in 2008. So we're 2 years at this
Wow, 2 years
point.
into it already. Okay.
But 2010 was the pain, creeping into 2011. And so 1 month after my car accident, I was laid off from Wind River slash Intel. No surprise. I mean, I couldn't even handle my presentations anymore with my brain fog, and we had the, you know, kind of the recession,
Right.
and I was just like, oh my God, you know, I'm, you know, part of it was a relief, and the other part of it was, you know, oh my God, I'm a failure now, and how am I going to support, you know, my child and this mortgage and everything else, and
Right.
so luckily, I was being treated by an acupuncturist the second time in my life, and she was like, well, you've always been into medicine, and you know so much about supplements and health, and you know, why don't you go to acupuncture school? And it was just like, well, I could get student loans and I could pay for my child, and you know,
Right.
I clearly can't do sales anymore because my brain doesn't work. And maybe in this process, I'll figure out a way to get better. And
Right.
so um, I did that, and in the process, I also stumbled upon a great naturopath, Dr. Suzanne Wing out of Palo Alto. She's not in Palo Alto anymore, but that's where she was. And she was the one who turned on the light about fibromyalgia. And she said, in my first conversation, even before, you know, meeting her at her office, she spent about 30, 45 minutes with me on the phone and was like, I really think you have fibromyalgia. And I'm like, fibro what? Um, and that's where that journey began. And she tested my gut, found out that I had zero bifidia, and 40 food sensitivities.
Wow.
The highest she'd ever seen in her career at that point. I think I might still be the highest. I should check with her. So I won that award. Um, and so she started me on the journey of understanding gut health, and understanding, okay, when you have a food sensitivity and you don't have the right bacteria, this is what your body starts to do. And so while that was really the infancy of understanding gut health compared to where I am today, she started that road, and then she did some more testing, and I wasn't really making progress, even though she started this road, and I thank her so much, because I would have never, I don't think I would have found out I had this and made the steps that I made later.
Right.
So the next really important doctor in my journey was Dr. Beth McDougall, who runs Clear Center of Health in Marin. And she then confirmed, she said, yes, you have fibromyalgia. And furthermore, I think you might, have something like celiac, and
Right.
let's test your adrenals. Oh, wait, what are adrenal glands? And so discovered, about adrenal health. And she was really the first doctor, and she is an MD, but she practices more holistic medicine, that actually started to make a dent in my fatigue. So I really give her credit for a physical difference, whereas understanding what was happening to me or what kind of ailments I had really goes to Dr. Wang.
Wow. So you're at this point. How do you feel today, by the way?
I am, for the most part, pain-free.
Yes. Yes.
I'm very happy about that. If I do my self-care, which we'll talk about, and the fatigue is about 75%.
Okay. Now, what protocol have you taken to get to pain-free? Because that's one of the, I think, the number one problems with fibromyalgia is the pain.
Yeah. So exercise is critical. And in the beginning, it can be really hard. And I've talked about this with you and many patients, where you'll have a good day and then want to go do all the things you used to do. Well, I think I fell on that crack, no joke, 100 times. So that's why I know that one so well.
Yes.
But it's really doing a little bit by bit. And my rheumatologist was really good at this. And he's like, I understand that you used to be, this racing cyclist. You used to be a competitive swimmer. I understand you have this memory of what your body used to do, and you're not there anymore. And the way you're going to get there is if you follow my advice. And my advice is that you walk 5 minutes for 1 week.
Interesting, very interesting. They brought you down to 5 minutes a week.
Right, and then he said you can add 2 minutes every week. And that's how you step yourself into this. And you can't do more than your body can do, and you can't keep pushing yourself when you think you're having a good day. And I'm like, well, I've kind of figured that out. But hearing him, look at me, such a really kind, gentle rheumatologist I adore him, really began this kind of like acceptance. There has to be an acceptance.
And that's the hardest, Christine. I mean, you've seen how much I've struggled with it. One good day and I'm back to racing around as if, I don't have any issues. And then bam, the body goes, really? Is that what you're going to do to me? I'm going to put you back down on bed again. And then it's like 2 days I can't get out of bed. So you're right. I think that the acceptance part, that it's such a sudden shift of gears, is the hardest. How did you get that? How did you go there? Was it just the body's feedback was too painful, or did you do meditation or breathing exercises? How did you get there?
Well, I'm one of those type A, and I'll hit my head on the wall a good many times before I get that, this ain't working for you. I wish I could say that it's meditation. Meditation is now part of my practice. That took a lot longer, which is so funny because I used to study with, at SF Zen Center, and still, it wasn't in the beginning of my practice. It was not part of my healing in the beginning. It is part of my healing now. And it is a very critical part of, I would say, any chronic patient's practice. The sooner they can adopt meditation or a breathing technique, which, creates a meditative state of mind, you will do better faster.
I can personally attest to that. I didn't start, I think, truly begin the healing process till I started meditating like a maniac. I call it my maniac meditation moments. I was literally meditating 4 or 5 hours. I had it on the whole time. And that definitely switched up. It's almost like there was a switch that went on.
Yes.
Which said, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to breathe deeply and to just sit still. Because that was the hardest part for me, was just to sit still.
Right. We're used to going. And the idea of sitting still seems like we're doing nothing, yet we are actually accomplishing more.
Right, right. So as we look at your protocol for getting to pain-free, you said exercise was very important. What else did you do?
Acupuncture, actually.
Okay.
And even in acupuncture school, I was not getting acupuncture treatments weekly, and there was a point where I just said, I really have to dedicate, I'm studying this medicine. I really need to dive into this and see. And I had a practitioner who was recommended to me, and I started to see her on a weekly basis. And that's when the pain started to go with starting to walk. And I think actually looking back a little bit, I did the acupuncture before the walking, but the walking would keep the acupuncture longer.
Okay.
And so, I can't live without my acupuncture. I can go longer now, but if I don't get acupuncture, the pain will come back, even if I keep walking.
And how often do you do acupuncture?
I was normally going every week. I now go about every 3 weeks, and it really depends on, I know, I would prefer personally for my own well-being every 2 weeks. And like I said, we get stuck in the go, 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 and that's something that we are practicing.
Right.
I don't say that I have mastered this by any means. I'm constantly practicing self-care.
Right, right. It's sort of a daily reminder.
Yes.
Which is where meditation's great for me, which is I start my day with meditation from Louise Hay, where she reminds you, love yourself, be kind to yourself, look in the mirror and say, I love you. And it's so weird when you first start.
Yeah.
It's so strange. And I know my family looked at me like I'd completely lost my marbles.
Right.
But there's something in there where you say that enough times, enough mornings, and my illness is 8 months old. You say it enough times, and it does change the flow of your morning. It really does. So what else? So acupuncture, you were doing twice a week, and walking. Any supplements that worked for you?
Lots of supplements. So, really working, probiotics is something I have to do. So a really good regimen of probiotics. I'm actually switching them around. This is something that, in some future we'll get to work on. But now I'm on a different slew of probiotics, and I change them around so that the gut flora can constantly be changed, because not every company has the same bacteria in their prescription.
And there's so many options.
So many options.
So it's crazy. Are you able to share with us which brand you use and how many billions do you take on a given day?
So I actually take 2 different companies. I don't think I remember the second one I've added to my list now, but the first one is by Renew Life.
Okay.
I really like it. It's affordable is one of the important parts for my patients.
Mm-hmm.
And so Renew Life, I take it 150 billion.
Okay.
And it's been what works best for me. Now I also have celiac, and to finally have that discovered was a long tow as well, right? And I haven't been formally diagnosed with a biopsy, I will say. The diagnosis comes from the fact that I had no bifidia. I had all these food sensitivities. I have a very strong reaction to wheat within 30 minutes.
Wow.
And I have these other, this other autoimmune condition, which is Hashimoto's. And so it is, Dr. McDougall was like, you pretty much have celiac. Do we really need to go in there and cut?
Right.
Do a biopsy? And it's like, well, at this point, do we really need to do that? And I just haven't found that it would be important.
Right.
So I need a really high probiotic count because it is really hard with a family to be that clean, frankly.
Of course.
Um, it's so easy that if you go even to the grocery store, you're getting, frankly, contaminated with what they have learned recently, that, the gluten protein does not break down unless it's between 500 and 600 degrees for 30 minutes. So it doesn't matter where I go. I'm going to get wheat all over me. And so I just need a higher regimen than other patients. But the probiotics is essential. I also take betaine to help with the low acid in my stomach. I take amino acids. I take curcumin. I take high amounts of fish oil for the inflammation, because inflammation is really easy in my body.
Right.
And, another thing that I will call a supplement is therapy. People and I myself need therapy so that I can work with how I take on and take in stress.
Right.
And so that's my next chapter right now that I'm working on. I was like, okay, I've gotten the supplements down. I've got the walking down. I'm 75% there, but I'm not 100. And what is in my way still?
Right.
Oh, this thing called stress.
Yes. Yes. And that's, to be honest, I think what kicks off these chronic illnesses. And that's a chapter that I think every single person should be working on for themselves, whether they're chronically ill or not. I mean, now looking back, I feel, had I known the long-term effects of the kind of life that I was leading, I would have clearly done a lot more for prevention. And so I almost feel like, why didn't someone tell me? Slow down. When I fainted at the airport between a flight, and I came back and I told everyone I had fainted because out of exhaustion, nobody said, oh, maybe you should take a day off and go home and rest.
Right. No, they're like, no, just keep going.
Yeah. They're like, oh, great, you're fine. Thank God you woke up. Great. Now here's the next thing you need to do. So just in general, I think you're right that it's not just you. I think every one of us needs to be working on that stress piece. And Sadhguru has some amazing videos. In fact, his point is stress is self-created. So you just need to learn how to manage not to get stressed, because stress is not real. It's all in your mind. And so you need to train your mind not to understand even the concept of stress. So that's where I'm doing. I'm listening to a lot of Sadhguru's videos on the quote-unquote concept of stress and how it's actually not real. It's all made up, and that means I can control it.
So that's exactly what I'm working with, is how do I relate to stress?
Yes.
Right? It's not that the stress. Now, I do have some give and take. Our level of stress is quite high. I mean, our ancestors did get to sit around and, pick beans out of shells.
Right.
Which we just don't get to do. And they weren't driving around in cars at 80 miles an hour trying to get from place to place. So, while, yes, I agree that I would say a good 85% of the problem is how we relate to the stress, I'm not going to diminish that our lives are too stressful, and that this acceptance in society of this kind of lifestyle, that needs to change.
I completely agree. Yeah. Completely agree. Because what we've created for ourselves is I call it a hyper society, right? Everything's on steroids.
Yes.
And that's not a marathon, that's a sprint. Like, you can sprint fast. But if you're going to sprint a marathon, you're going to burn out. And I think that's what you and I are, right? We're burned out because we sprinted a marathon in the peak of our lives.
Right.
And that's the whole different question of, do you move? Do you leave? Do you just get out of the whole bubble of insanity? But you can't. We live in this world. We live in this society. And so it's really tough to figure out that balance. Well, we're looking forward to reading your story, Christine. I know this video is going to be a short interview, but we're really looking forward to reading your story as well, your protocols, the doctors that have helped you heal. Yep. What is the one final suggestion, recommendation you have for patients of fibromyalgia?
walk, and when you start to feel that you're getting tired, don't look at it as giving up. Look at it as a moment to breathe, and you'll be able to do 10 times more if you listen in that moment and sit down and take the gift of sitting instead of looking at it as a failure.
That's beautifully said. Christine, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you on your blog.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.